Hello, this is Michelle at East Avenue Art, and today I'm going to show you how I painted this semi-realistic pumpkin. So I started with a light sketch, and I'm doing this on just a scrap piece of my Arches watercolor paper. And I felt comfortable sketching this directly onto the paper lightly, just because, a pumpkin is just kind of like a little oblong shape, so it's not too complicated of a sketch. But when I do erase, I like to use that rubber eraser because it does a good job of like lifting the pencil or graphite off of the paper rather than rubbing it in like sort of other types of erasers, like the eraser that you see at the end of my pencil there. And once I get the basic shape, then I decide to add in like the sort of the sections of the pumpkin, and I spend some time sort of making these like wonky shapes to give it a 3D look. And this is going to help me later on as I think about where my shadows are going to be and where the seams of the pumpkin will be. And then from there, I use my little spray bottle to get some of my paint activated. Now, you'll be surprised that I'm actually starting this orange pumpkin with some blue. And one of the reasons why I'm doing that is because blue is a complementary color of orange. It sits opposite on the color wheel. And as such, it makes a really natural looking shadow. So any of the areas where I want to have a shadow, I'm actually going to start by adding the blue onto my pumpkin in those areas. And so of course that's going to be where sort of like the pumpkin seams are. And so it seems kind of counterintuitive to be putting blue down, but because it is opposite, it's like a little bit of color theory because it's opposite on the color wheel. It actually creates a really natural looking shadow, more than just maybe like mixing in black or some other really dark color like that. So eventually I'm going to paint over this with orange, but my first step is really to add in that shadow color, and then I'll be able to glaze over that with orange. From here, I'm going to add, though, sort of my highlight color, which is this yellow. So that's going to be the lightest color of my pumpkin. I want to give it sort of like a golden undertone. And so I'm starting really light, and then I can build up the orange color as I go. And again, I'm not too upset if it gets a little bit muddy because I will want that sort of blue to be covered up somewhat by the orange. Now I've let the yellow paint dry, and so this is going to be kind of like a more wet onto dry. Um, and I'm just starting to add in the orange, and you can see it's starting to cover up the blue a little bit. It looks more like a shadow color there. And I'm just kind of making sure that I somewhat retain that nice yellow, especially towards the center of each section of the pumpkin, because I feel like that's giving me a little bit more of a 3D effect. And now I added all of that orange in, and now I'm going in with sort of a deeper orange, and I want to build up the color in that shadow area a little bit more with like a thicker consistency of orange and a little bit more of a deeper orange color as well. And so I'm going to be just sort of like working the paint. All of this is dry, so I'm just kind of going wet paint over dry paint, and just trying to build up that color as I go. Okay, so at this point, I've added a little bit of brown onto my palette as well, and I'm just using that to continue to build up the color. I don't want my pumpkin skin to be super flat. I want it to look textured and imperfect because there's all of these kind of creases on a pumpkin. And so, sort of using that dry brushing onto the, or wet brushing onto the dry paint, it's like really kind of give me somewhat more of a realistic effect. And in some areas where I think maybe the paint is too dark, sometimes I will clean off my brush and like scrub at it a little bit just to soften some of the edges. And then you'll also see me kind of, what I did just now was to pick up a little bit of that yellow, that sort of golden paint, and then kind of glaze over the pumpkin as well. I think that's helpful to keep that golden color. And now I'm taking sort of an olivey green and I'm going in and starting on the stem. And I'm going to keep the cut off part of the stem, the tip of that stem, a little bit lighter than the stem itself. And because I decided to do that midstream, I decided to stop painting the stem until that dried because I don't want that light color to get mixed in with the darker olive because I want the kind of the edge of the stem to stand out. And there I go in with a little bit more of a orangey bit as well. And I'm just kind of playing around with the colors and adding just streaks of different colors and just trying to give it this like very realistic effect. So it looks like an actual like plant material, I guess. Okay, now that the stem has kind of dried, I'm going to go back in with that darker olivey color and fill in the rest of the stem. And you can see that that's not going to spill over into that edge part. And yeah, here's my final product for the orange pumpkin. And I then decided underneath it to paint a blue pumpkin. I think blue and orange, being complementary colors, look so nice together. If you would like to see a tutorial of the blue pumpkin, I can definitely share that. Just leave a comment for me. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thanks.